Hello ladies and gentlemen, Dave Dobbs here. It's the 16th of April 2024 and well, there's a lot going on. I haven't made a video in a while and I've just been kind of watching it all going on. We've had the eclipse going on, we've had well, you can see what's happened in the between the tensions between Iran and Israel and the 300 missiles. And there's a really interesting kind of like, why did they send 300 missiles? What was the message there? Well, I'm going to explore all of that. And the big question, you know, if World War III started, how many minutes would it last? It's kind of a joke, really, because that is the scenario. As Einstein said, if the Third World War starts, the Fourth World War starts with bows and arrows. You know, it's you know, I was listening to a podcast of the you know, a reading of the Bhagavad Gita, and you know, ever since my eyes have been really struggling, I've been, instead of reading so much, I've been kind of like prone to listening to loads and loads more podcasts, and it's been such a refreshing way to experience so much new material. It really has. Processing, I've been churning through stuff just lately, which is why you haven't really been hearing that much from me, because it's just all in our faces. But you know, I was just listening to the Bhagavad Gita because, you know, my mum, she really affiliated with the whole, you know, she was as much, you know, she affiliated with Christ, she affiliated with kind of like with Sai Baba, she affiliated with Hare Krishna. You know, she was a divine being connected to the divine source, and anyone who came to her with love and compassion and understanding, she met with that. And she was a beautiful being, but but anyway, so I'm always fascinated by the Bhagavad Gita anyway. But it's so interesting because it's like Star Wars. It's like total Star Wars from start to finish. Yeah, so apologies about that. So the kind of like the whole tie to it was the you know, it's a sci-fi novel, really. You know, the whole thing is just like Enki and just a total, you know, I don't know, you know, it's a sci-fi novel of just like of magnificently powerful gods that can colonize worlds and have massive ships and so on and so forth, and when it comes to Earth, both sides in this big equation are understanding that as soon as war starts, they both lose. You know, with the type of technology they want to bring to the table. No, Shanti, no, go and lie down, sweetheart. And that's kind of where we are at the moment. Is like, you know, it's a catch-22 situation. Anyway, I'm just gonna, before I go any further, I've got a load of stuff lined up, and I just want to go through the astronomical side of where we're at here, because those who follow me probably are much more kind of akin to what's actually happening, especially with all the earthquakes and everything else that have been going on. So, and then we're going to tie all this into why the big stir up now and what's really going on, and just look at what's literally going on astronomically right now for us. You know, remembering that, you know, we've got over 40 volcanoes now erupting. We've got Iceland, the big cold air is completely full to the top. We've had Etna going absolutely crazy. We've had volcanoes around the earth going absolutely crazy. We've got a lot of activity. We've had big earthquakes, notably the one on the I guess it would have been the 3rd of April, just gone. So there's been lots of activity going on. So what is this shot here? What is this shot here? Well, this was caught on April the 2nd at 12:34 a.m. Well, I guess that's Nashville. I'm just trying to get the exact moment. So you can understand that this is no different in what's happening here as to what I show you here with what Jeff P showed us on the 14th of October 2016, the massive plasma bolt we saw in the sky. And that was a plasma charge, in my opinion, between Mars and this big blue object, which we are getting other shots of that coming in right now, because it's right where we're expecting it to be. But that is what he's showing there. Now, when I think about the earthquake that happened at on the 3rd of April, 7:58 local time, which is just before midnight, you know, on UTC, what is it, Universal Time, whatever it means, code or whatever it is, you know, which is Greenwich Mean Time, which would mean that this was in the morning in Taiwan, early in the morning, but that would have been at night in America at the same time, pretty much. And you see, so let's just think about my model before, because remembering, if I show you that earthquake there, and also remind you of 2000 Indian earthquake, which was an 8.6, an absolutely massive 8.6 on the 11th of April 2012. So if we go back now to my model, so what I've done is I've got these two the wrong way around. This one is in the front because, is that right? Or maybe I just haven't got them close enough together. Maybe I have got that right, and maybe these two aren't close enough together. But let me show you what I mean, because when I bring that forward, you'll see that Charon is going right behind Earth there, and it's coming in, and it's going, and it's coming up behind, so to speak. But that should actually be just about over here, really, because if we go 1 month back, if we go 1 year back to 2023, when we saw the massive, I said they're going to be absolutely massive, they're going to come with massive earthquakes in Turkey, they're going to be in the northern hemisphere and what have you. So you saw them last year. I told you 6 months before you were going to see them, both sightings. And obviously the big blue one, as we're seeing this year, as we're going to see, this is going to be the big one that's going to affect us, obviously in August, September. But we're gonna talk more about that later. So we're going back to last year, but remembering, if you can imagine, when we got to this point here, so this is Earth coming around here, and this is what I'm calling Kerberos and Charon crossing, as they did at the same point as they did exactly 12 years before, 2012, 2011. And then what happens is that this next year, when we come to now, they've come in, we've already gone by at this crossing point, but we're kind of going that direction, as instead of us all going in the same direction, they're coming in across, and we're cutting up, almost not perpendicular to them, but we are not exactly running parallel. These have come in, and this one here has come in, and it's running behind us as we're going along here. But it's you know, the proportions of these, you know, every time I build these models, it's absolutely ballpark figure, but it's directly behind us at the moment. It has been behind us. That's why we're having this long duration volcano, and it's been in the northern hemisphere. So, and if we go back to, like I say, to 2012, when this really started, because this is when this was when all this came to the ecliptic. You know, when we started seeing all these fantastic sights, the big sightings that we've seen since 2011, 2012, and 2013, the big ones. That one when I arrived in America on the day of the last eclipse. You know, and we're going to talk about the eclipse and what was covered up and what was chemtrail, but they didn't chemtrail that when on the 17th of but let's and that one, obviously, that was a massive flyby that really put me on the map. That was the big one I predicted, where everyone was just like, what the hell is that? That came with an 8.0 earthquake, you know, around about the 20th. That appeared on the 20th, 21st. It says the 21st, I think it was actually on the 20th, but maybe I'm getting that wrong. But it was the time of Trump's inauguration. Do you remember that whole kind of like, and that was just like, it was such a mega sighting, such a mega shot. And that was obviously Dill Martin's, well not obviously, but that was one of Dill Martin's, if not Dill Martin's last video, and he was a massive Planet Xer with massive views, and when that came in and all the earthquakes came and the shots and the sightings, I think he just couldn't handle it after that, and he realised that, you know, you're not going to be able to potentially make people see this until they're good and ready. And it was, keep going back to all these epic shots, but we come back to 2012, where it's after 2011, and we've got this same thing coming on again, where instead of we're at the point of crossing, it's coming up behind us, and it crosses us. I think it comes up right behind us in, well, April, because that's where it all seems to. That's where it all seems to. You know, like I say, what's so difficult in this model, which you get so much more of an understanding in this model, is these kind of 2 points of crossing, which you can't really see. This last model I've just shown you there, you can see the point of crossing here, where what I've got is our sun going round what I'm calling Planet X, and Pluto or Uranus or Neptune or whatever you want to call the big blue object that we reinvent every 84 years, because it keeps turning up in the wrong place, because we're trying to live in this 500-year-old antiquated static sun kind of standard model, which is a religious model, and obviously not kind of really see that the big blue object is just the same object. And you can see the two crossing points here and here. This was 1930 when we were calling it Pluto, exactly 84 years before we were calling it Neptune. And obviously it's exactly 84 years after the kind of, like, you know, after the kind of, you know, that's when we're seeing it as a big star, as if something like, what the hell is that? And we have to kind of address it and call it something and say, oh, well, that's just like, because we can't say it's Uranus because it turns up on the wrong side of the solar system to be Uranus. You know what I mean? As we could just keep calling it the same thing, and so we are constantly reinventing, popping a new blue object on at these critical points when the big blue object obviously turns up in the wrong place. But like I say, you don't really, in this new model, it's much more just, this is much more about looking at where I was kind of showing the kind of what happens when these two objects, Pluto, whatever you want to call the big blue object, and our sun orbiting the same object at different kind of orbital kind of ratios, marry up and actually kind of pass each other at the same time. Where, you know, because most of us are in that kind of, you know, if you touch Planet X, you're kind of going down it from the Zakai-Sitchin kind of route, which is the 3,600-year orbit kind of route, which is, this kind of amounts to the same thing, because this is an 1,800-year cycle where you come to the same place every 1,800 years, and of course 2 cycles of that is 3,600 years. So however you want to see your 3,600-year cycle, but in an antiquated standard model, through a 500-year-old kind of model window, where you've got the sun as the primary, and then you've got an object coming into the sun, slowly coming in, and then coming in past the sun and going out. That point of passing the sun is only going to last a matter of years. It's not going to be over. You're not going to be able to turn it into a massive long duration, kind of 400 years coming in and 400 years going out kind of story, which is the story that we're in. This object being the same object, slowly arriving in the time of Galileo, and kind of like this whole narrative being built up and developed around this whole thing to hide this whole thing from you, to hide what is this new object that I'm just trying to think if I've got the shot of it there. We're going to explore some of these because, well, let's just go through these. Let me just come to this. This object here, this video here, posted on the 10th of April by Turkey Report, capturing. We know that this object is up there, but we also know that, you know, you know, we're seeing all the seismology and that sort of stuff. But it's not, this object is not, as in my opinion, it's coming in just below the ecliptic now. It's not coming in deep south in the southern aspect of our solar system. It's kind of just below the ecliptic line, and it's going to cross and go into go above and affect us just in the northern hemisphere. In is when we're going to get the closest flyby of that in the northern hemisphere in about kind of like in August, September sort of time. But what we're seeing right now with, you know, the constant pull, don't forget this shot here is kind of like well, it says streamed 21 hours ago, so it might be, but the caldera is full at the moment. It's just like a massive caldera. It's full and it's all coming down one side, out one side, so it's stable. But nonetheless, what have we got? We've got I did see a graph of it. Yeah, as of April 14th of October, sorry, April 14th. So get the 14th and immediately think of October. You immediately think of Jeff P there. But yeah, there are 47 volcanoes, which are all going bang at the moment. And that's the kind of like, that's the kind of like, one of these is magma. I think it might be this one for Iceland, but you can see it's not going down. This thing is just getting bigger and bigger. And when I like I say, when I last checked with the earthquakes, it was 31. That was about a week ago. So it's getting bigger and bigger. So the effects are getting stronger, but this thing's getting closer to the ecliptic. Like I say, think about the 2012 Indian earthquake. Well, that's just, but you know, it's the Indian earthquakes. But actually, look where that position is. Indian Ocean, sorry. So you can see that that's, you know, that must be, I think that is India's in the northern hemisphere, so that is the kind of line of, that must be the equator there just below. So this was actually just above, about to go below. Is that right? No, sorry, this would have been below, just going above, as it's doing completely opposite now. And as in the big earthquake in Taiwan, have I got a map there? I think I did download one. Yeah, you can see there's Taiwan there. It's kind of like so it's well in the northern hemisphere. So anyway, so we saw that, and you're saying, wow, you know, this is moving exactly like clockwork. You know, and then we're seeing the volcanoes. And then we're getting all these shots in the daylight, what we could think of as Aurora Borealis, but this is the tail of this object catching the luminance. And Mr. MVB 333 showing some epic shots of it as well, and then we've got the Real Planet X Hunter showing. When was this video? This was on April the 6th in the night sky, and he's showing a bright object that is just a bright object that gets eclipsed by this thing. It's just absolutely magnificent kind of like shot of this object exactly where I'm telling you it's coming in from. You know what I mean? If it's any closer, the moon, this is the moon was, you know, this is like, it's getting so close to the moon behind us that it's causing this massive kind of like, that's what you're seeing as the moon came round at that point when it was right next to it. You're just literally seeing that. It's everything you could. These are breathtaking shots. All of these are just absolutely mind-blowing shots, all corroborating, all coming in at the same time. Exactly, that was posted by World of Science. Look at that, coming right over in front of the sun. That was that. That was, you might say where that is in the title. You're on the 10th of April. And then this shot came in, and this was posted by World of Science on April 15th, I think yesterday. Now, what is that? Seen over China. I mean, what is that? Is that the big blue object? is that a screen that can be put up, like a series of gases that can be kind of like launched by a satellite or like by something, just to create a kind of like a screen that you can block things? Is it a planet and it just looks really weird the way this thing just, is it a portal? It's just, we're seeing major stuff up in the sky that is just like, it's like something is up there trying to block something out using some kind of technology or something. That is just like, what is that? You know, there's big stuff seismically. You remember our local volcano, Stromboli, and you see everything's going crazy now. Stromboli is like 80 million tons of carbon dioxide on a single eruption. 80 million tons. It absolutely destroys. You think the amount of carbon dioxide that we're all panicked about, 0.04% in the air. We're like, oh my god, carbon dioxide has reached 0.04% with all these volcanoes. Remembering last year around about kind of like August, September, October, it went right up to like 61 volcanoes simultaneously going off. I can remember when I predicted a whole bunch of volcanoes going off in September 2019, and I went along to the Extinction Rebellion kind of prep rally where they were going to organise all the stuff they were going to do, and they were going to run their People's Assembly, which was absolutely amazing. And I went along and I presented my idea, and I said, listen guys, we've been seeing these massive releases of carbon dioxide. It was we'd seen it before. I'd said it before, and in 2000, you remember September 2018, on the 28th of September 2018, I said, oh my god, there's going to be massive oceanic anomalies on that day. You can do anything you like, but we can't get around these patterns that are slapping us around the face. They're just absolutely crystal clear, pristine, absolutely divinely perfect, as predictable as the eclipse was. You know, people predicted the eclipse that happened on the 8th 100 years ago, because it's absolutely mathematical. Those movements, it's absolutely known that's going to happen. No one can mess with that, and when that happens, exactly when it happens, that's because it's exactly predictable. Like all of these flybys that I show you are exactly predictable, which is why they chemtrailed the buggery out of the skies over America and Canada and Mexico. I saw the shots over Mexico. You saw it. There were just absolutely clouds over, thin clouds blocking everything out. Rockets going off to try and confuse the story. And there were sightings. Sure, there were sightings, but you couldn't really see that much. I wasn't expecting to see that much. I didn't think it was. I pretty much knew that they don't want you to see that. But whatever that is, I'm not of a mind that's the planet. I'm of a mind that's technology screening something that's behind that. That's some kind of gaseous technology that's been used as a screen to block what's happening, the shining thing that's behind that is reflecting loads of light as that's come into view. And they're blocking it off. And Turkey report on the 15th. You know, as this thing slips into the, slips into the daylight sky, it becomes harder to see. But that's not, and that's the whole thing. Is most of this stuff has been hiding in the daylight sky. It all arrived in the 15, 16, 1700s. It's been hiding in the daylight sky ever since then, and we've been dealing with that, and not understanding that. This very rarely dips into the night sky, apart from when it comes close to the ecliptic. Other than that, it's, and then it can dip right behind Earth and very close to Earth, because most of our solar system is just bathed in bright sunlight. There's very few places where you can jump into to hide in the shadow where you can be seen from Earth. And that's what we're seeing at this unbelievably precious time. And this is what they were seeing from the it came into view as a star in the 1930s, and then it was kind of like and then it was all kind of like crossing that ecliptic. And so that's why we're seeing shots like this. And archaics, you've got to think, I'm talking about this right now, but of course, archaics, I bring him in here because, he's just, he's just an absolute, he's an absolute fascination. He's an absolute fascination to me. I absolutely love his material, but of course, he was the one who, He was the one who put me onto the massive Cornish dustfall of January 1902, and And we're thinking, you know, if you know, on this calendar here, I'm saying 2000 and on this thing here, like 11th of the 4th. Well, what date was the earthquake? Let's say because the earthquake was on the 3rd. The 3rd of April, minus 12 years, and we go 10 times. I've pretty much done it already anyway. And we go 10 times. Is that going to come up? I'm still connected. So you can see that, yeah, it fits in with the 2012 massive seismology we were expecting. And we go back to 1904. And what we've got to understand in my model, when you actually think of it, not so much through this model where I show you from 262 and we come round and around and around and around, and I show it, I try to kind of apply more of Kepler's rules into this model, but instead of the crossing point here and then coming round and then the crossing point over here, it's not so easy to demonstrate this using kind of like trying to incorporate a little bit more of Kepler's kind of rules. It was the same time as Galileo, and so but you get it much more on this model here, where you can kind of understand that going from here and coming round to here, this kind of point where we're moving faster, going from one side to the other, so we're actually slowly moving past Pluto even in this stretch, which means that there's the whole angle that we are going to be between these two is very slightly changing, and so there's a slight change in the kind of like the angle that these two interact overall as they move through this distance. You know, one of these moves around planet X in 6 times in 1800 years, and one of these moves around planet X in 5 times. And I've changed the two around in the new model, just to kind of because this is where it gets really complex. But nonetheless, you know, to try and just stay with the kind of like the conundrum of why that is, why this event is 2 years out. You know, this red dust that fell from the sky, you know, we're talking about so much red dust that if it landed on ships it would just capsize them. They just wasn't ever really investigated. And you know, you've got this story here. I'll just put it up there if you want to kind of follow it, because it was archaic, so it put me onto this massive amount of red dust that came down across the globe, you know, and it affected the different planet in different places. The phenomenon here was recorded in obviously November, because that's another critical passage point depending on where you are at the time of these, because we're next to Jupiter and its moons. It's just like, I know it seems over the top, but it seems over the top when you look at it from the standard model. But you know, it's and then you've got, you know, this was a very interesting article as well. Low by Charles Fort. Now, interesting. Low. It's called, you know, the story's called Low. Hang on, just because I haven't done this, but L-O, or maybe it's I-O. I'm just trying to think of, I'm sure that was the name of a planet. What planet is Lo the moon of? Jupiter! Yeah! How mad is that? So, you know, the story, where is it? The story was published Low by Charles Fort, 1931, and it's called Low. I mean, guys, it's just written on the packet. Yeah, I just suddenly put that together. That was it. That, you know, and anyway, so this is, I'm not trying to say that we're going to see a load of red dust coming down. We are going to see, we're going to be very close, we're getting very, very close to this object. Yeah, this is that time where the red dust can come down. All of that is true. I'm not saying that that's going to happen, because it didn't happen in 2012. And we're in pretty much, it's in the same proximity to Earth as it was in 2012. It's just that 1902 was the first time the planet started going round our sun. You know, the two systems will be getting closer and closer and closer, just like one planet is getting closer and closer to Earth and the Moon. This, whether you want to call it low, is getting closer now as it was in 1902 to Earth and the Moon. The same thing is happening as it's been happening for the last century. I'm of a mind that 1902 would have been the first time it occurred. And yeah, so we got closer and closer, and that's why we see this 2-year difference. That's why we've got this one, because, you know, you go to 1939, and this model, you know, running, you know, the reason I put this model together was to bring us to that point here, and then do the overlay, so we can just run these overlays as much as possible. Excuse me one second, Shanty's being a little bit chaotic. So we could run this from Carlos Ferrada's big prediction on the 20th of January and just run it like the cogs of a gearbox, not try and slow it down and make it work. It either works or it doesn't work. And see that this was Jupiter on the 20th of January. You know, and, you know, just think about, you know, we're right at that same, we're still seeing that same sort of crossing, which is, if we come to a list of earthquakes that have happened, 1st of January, 2024, we get very close to that. We see seismology. Realistically, that is the twins, as I'm showing you here. That's what we're mostly discussing here. Really, is that cross us in that at this point here in the in the February-March position, and then affect us after. But they run parallel with us. There's no crossing here. There's just close proximity. I think overall we move faster. You know, but we saw our activity, and, you know, 22nd of January again. We're seeing that same sort of thing. This is, as I kind of like as I try and show in this model more than anything else, is this is the direction our sun is moving. This is Carlos Ferrada's big prediction. He said the big blue object would pass us on the 20th. He said the 24th of January 1939, the year the Second World War began. And it happened exactly on schedule. It happened on the 20th. You know, remember the tsunami that happened in 1606 on the 20th of January. This is, you know, that's your forward motion of the sun, and because we don't have that in the standard model, it's very difficult for us to understand that when you're dealing with asteroids that are going to come around our sun, or anything that's going to come around our sun, it has to come across the front edge of a moving sun. It's just that we live in a static sun model, so we don't have a picture of our sun moving, so we don't have kind of entrance and exit corridors mapped out in the standard model. We just have the sun in the center, in the pretty center. You know, the standard model is very akin to the Aristotle model, where the Earth is the center of the universe and everything moves around us. And all that's happened is we've been led to believe it's a scientific model, but all that's happened is it just contradicted the fundamental rules of Kepler's laws, which is why Isaac Newton came along in 1681, 84 years after the first dwarf planet was discovered, 1596, whatever it was, you know, Ceti B or Mira. Ironically, you know, it's kind of like it contradicted, the standard model contradicted Kepler's rules, 3 rules of orbital mechanics. And so Isaac Newton came along and he brought the hand of God in and put them all nice and evenly round, spinning round in a perfect circle. and it was the hand of God, he said, that placed them there. So it kind of just recreated what had been going on with the Earth in the centre of the universe, and it just migrated it to the sun, but it left us with the standard model where we just, like, none of us have a picture of a forward moving sun, and so we don't understand that. And so that's the big flyby that I predicted on the 20th of January 2017. Ironically, it's a distinctly reoccurring thing. But you can see that 1939 to 2023 is 84 years, is our 84-year period of time. And for us, that's really much more to do with this kind of point coming from here round to here, or from our sun going from here to here. These 2 points of crossing where our sun comes under and then crosses over into the I think it's into the northern aspect. Every time I make the video, these videos, I get so confused. So I can understand anyone else who watches these videos. You can only get to these things, honestly, by building models and mathematically moving through it as it just becomes. These are massive for me. These are just massive calculators, and this is what our predecessors didn't have: the ability to build these orreries, these digital orreries, which is all this is, and it's all these unbelievably fantastic sightings that have come in that are all absolute. They sit exactly where they should be when you see the bigger model of what's going on. And so we come now to, that's where we are, and what's actually happening for us is there was this massive anomaly. Now I don't know if you saw, this was just been posted, and despite numerous reports of UFOs or Atlanteans launching from the ocean, yesterday's image of giant waves near Africa was due to a model error. So this model area, this whatever this anomaly was, it was there, but the predictions, they ran it right up to here, which meant there was going to be massive tidal surges coming up and potentially affecting us up here. And and there was all these event buoys that were going into all these event buoys. I'm assuming down into the Indo-Pacific, but they were all going into the Atlantic. Sorry, all going into event mode. Now, hang on, I'm just trying to get my oceans confused there. Anyway, but they're all going into event mode, and this caused this didn't happen. This was the model calculation, based on its automated kind of process. It just sent it up there because that's what it should do. But nonetheless, this anomaly was first recorded, and then they deleted all the predictions of it. And this model explores that a little bit and talks about that. But what was this anomaly? Well, I think we can see what is affecting us massively, even though we might not want to. It's what we're looking at is this. We're looking at why the Iranians sent 300 missiles and drones and all the rest of it. It was a total of 300, as I'm understanding it, and there's a reason for that, and that's because, going back to the question, this is the time when we're closest to this big blue object. This is our fifth dimension. This is our higher realm. I know that sounds over the top, but that's how I've discovered this. And it's a realm unto itself, and it's something that we don't know how to touch, or we just don't know. We've hidden it behind all of this, what we call science, Newtonian science, to hide the big blue object that we absolutely choose to try and believe that's not here. That Carlos Rada predicted. I've shown you so many fantastic shots of it, and we've learned its movements, and or is a window on the pattern. You know, the model may be way more complex than I have it, but nonetheless I can give you a window on seeing it. This isn't right, none of this is right, but 300 is obviously because we go back to when was it? It was the 300. I think there were Spartans. I'm sure there were Spartans that that were. You know, this was the last time that Persia, as far as I'm understanding, the last time that Persia tried to invade Greece, or you know, Europe, or you know, this was the massive invasion, and you know, it was a massive force that came in, and you know, it was left with the kind of like this. What was the battle? I might have it there. Thermopylae, the Battle of Thermopylae, and that was kind of the 300 Sparta under. You know, it was. I'm not a great historian to this time, but this was, you know, pre the Roman Empire, and also in many ways the creation of the Roman Empire through all of this, because this is when Greece became, you know, really formidable, I suppose, because they saw off this invasion. It was the 300 that fought to the last man. They were all killed. They were all just, you know, and it stopped. Their absolute death stopped the war. So this was the last time there was this type of invasion. So 300 is a critical number, because think about what they did when they released these missiles. They gave a 12-day warning before they released them. And then when they were released, they gave them all the information, where they were coming from exactly. And Britain and America came down with all their kind of big destroyers and whatever else, and the Iron Dome and everything else like that. And they took out these weapons, as Iran knew they would take out every one of these weapons, as was planned. They released 300. But it's kind of a message, because when you're releasing 300 rockets, you know, Israel's tiny ultimately, really, you know, a blaze of rockets that come down. Once the dome goes down, and once you know, it's just a volume of how many rockets you can release in, say, 1 minute. You know, they could probably release across their country, probably, you know, I don't know how many thousands of rockets they could release in 1 minute. You know, but it just becomes a numbers game, and the other side can. How many rockets they release, and of course, once immediately Israel releases those rockets, well, that's not Israel bombing Iran, that's America, Britain, and bombing Iran using their proxy, as in Israel. So this is like, you know, that kind of like, you know, that scene where Rod Hull, has any ever seen that? Rod Hull, I'm sure he was that kind of puppeteer, you know, with Emu. You probably never saw it. It was kind of in the 60s, 70s, 80s, something like that. Maybe it was in the 70s or 80s. I remember seeing it as a kid, and there was this presenter, and the puppet kind of goes over the top and starts kind of like Rob Hull with his puppet starts going over the top, and he throws the presenter down, and it just goes too far, and the presenter just gets really irate and angry in the end, and hits out. He doesn't hit out at Emu. He hits out at Rod. He goes to kick Rod, and we can run our little spin stories that this is Israel doing this and and we've got no power over them and all the rest of it. But actually, we can see that Israel is, well, it's America and Britain's proxy in the region. You know, we can see that even though might run the spin on everything else that's going on, it's kind of like that's what's happening, and if immediately Israel strikes, well then, you know, immediately Israel strikes, and Iran is going to a real attack where they're going to absolutely seriously try to annihilate the country and destroy it. Iran will have to engage, and yeah, it's going to have to kind of defend itself against Israel, but to defend itself from Israel, it's going to have to hit out directly at the puppeteer, the one really pulling the strings. This is whatever goes down if Israel strikes is Britain, America, France, and Israel directly attacking Iran. They've only got one move. They've only got one move. That's why they released 300 missiles, and that's why they gave absolutely 12 days warning, and that's why they told them the exact time before they were going to release them, so they could all be tracked and destroyed by state-of-the-art technology. You know, you just think about the scenario. You know, when we had the Patriot missiles, and then the S-300 could take out. These are missiles that take out missiles that take out missiles. You know, the S-300 could take out the kind of like the Patriots, and the THAADs could take out the S-300s, and then the kind of like, and then the S-400s, the new ones that were as good as the THAAD missiles, and then China comes out with a new missile that can take out the THAAD and the kind of like S-300 and the S-400, S-400 or whatever it was, and the kind of like the Patriot. You know, it's just like, you know, weapons have become like milk in a bad fridge. You know, they're going off quicker than you can. You know, this whole a massive battle that would have to start. You know, it's all. You know, the Second World War ended with a nuclear explosion. It ended with a nuclear explosion. It didn't start. It started with tanks and cavalry. You know, the First World War started with cavalry and ended with tanks and bombers. The Second World War started with tanks and bombers, and it ended with a nuclear bomb. The Third World War, that's why they said 300 missiles that they knew could be taken down, so no one would get hurt. It was just like, look guys, this can go nowhere other than one place. It's you know, I thought it was it was an expensive message to send to the West, but no one was hurt in it. I mean, there was a child, we're told, that was injured by debris, but apparently all the things were kind of stopped before they arrived in Israel. You know, I wouldn't be just too surprised if it was rockets that just fell out of the sky because of other skirmishes to do with Gaza, to do with what's happening with Gaza in the West Bank, that were likely. I doubt for any one of those, because if any one of those kind of things landed in Israel, it would have been a massive loss of life. And so it was a message, and we've got to listen to that message and see the bigger message here, because this battle here was the last time. Well, it wasn't the last time, but you know, it's you know, they haven't invaded another nation in a very long time. You know, the battle, you know, the last big battle they had was the battle between, you know, all kind of like pushed on them through again through very similar sort of things. You know, the kind of battle in the 80s between Iran and Iraq, and they both suffered massive millions and millions of lives were lost in trench warfare. It was a massive loss of life, and in the most ferocious, bitter World War I style warfare, absolutely brutal warfare, and all those that were in the trenches, these are the generals, these are the kind of people that are kind of leading the charge in Iran. This is going to be, whoever chooses to be Iran's enemy in this, you know, we are. You know, the only way to really have this fight is to, without destroying this earth, is to have both sides You know, us, we just, you know, what we're heading for is the scenario that we're looking at is, you know, the new Fallout series that they're showing now, of, you know, that opens with a massive nuclear holocaust. That's all that can happen if Israel invades. There's no kind of like, oh, we're just going to break them a little bit. These, you cannot stop. If Britain and America if Israel attacks, this is Britain and America attacking. This is you know, but the new Fallout series, ironically, is showing the kind of scenario. There's no other way. We either have to, you know, so it's very unlikely that anyone can fire a missile, and if they do, they start something which there's only one way Iran can respond to this now, because there's no other way out of this. It's and because no one can respond, because there's no real kind of military maneuver on the chessboard, because it's just as Einstein said, if it starts, you know, the Third World War starts with bows and arrows. That's just it, you know. You can't get around that. You can't get around this position we're all in at this stage in the game. There's no way getting around that, which means that though they might not be able to start it, it's you know, there's other things that could happen here. There's other things that could happen here. False flags. You know, it depends what their agenda is and what they're trying to create and how they could create. Because if they can't start the war, only we can start the war, really. It's got to be our hate and our rage, and at the moment they haven't got that. People don't want the war, so they're not going to struggle to sell it. The only way they can sell this war is to get everyone hungry. That's their only way to sell this war. And so if they could come up with a false flag that could make everyone hungry, and because there's always a big recession before a war. You can't have war without famine. And so we're just in a kind of like checkmate situation that there's no real move on the chessboard. We've all just got to watch this space. None of us know how this is going to go. We are potentially very close to debris. That could be, you know, we just don't know how close it's going to get. This is all untold. We've got a good window of what happened in 2012 to kind of like you know, in 2012 the comet was visible, we're calling it Comet Ison. In 2011 the comet was visible, we're calling it Comet Ellen. It's been visible every year, mathematically. Every 200 days you've seen a comet. They've renamed it, you know, every time. You know, that took us up to 2017. Well, it took us up to 2018, but after 2018 we were right next to it, and then we were just saturated with the shots, and then we got the 200-day anomalies, but we got more than that. We just got saturated. We started seeing all of the objects because we were finally back on the ecliptic plane as we were during the Second World War, from 1939 to about 1944-45, and we were right when this big blue object that's been also coming around with these twin tail objects, the one that caused the big 1939 earthquake on the 20th of January. We're just seeing all of these objects again. This is when we've had all our long duration volcanoes, as in not coming under the solar system and then going out through the top, or coming from the top and going out through the bottom, but coming in on the ecliptic, coming round and just staying in close proximity to a planet like Earth as it's coming round, as we're seeing now. Big times, guys. It's time to wage peace. So, you know, I've released another couple of chapters of my book. One Way to Jupiter, I'm calling it now, by Dave Dobbs. I'm renaming that. I'm releasing it on Patreon up there, and for all those people who've joined me on there, I'm thinking about what to do with it and where to release it into a bigger audience. But right now, I'm just releasing it on there as I read it out, and I'm going to start sending it out. And for those people who are following me on there and giving me a bit of support, thank you so much, because that's my only way of making revenue at the moment. I'm really struggling. Those people who've helped me, and those people who finally gave me some financial support, can I just thank you so much? I know that I struggle so much with communication with everyone at the moment. I just can barely do it on any level at all. Watching this, because I've had to watch this whole thing. When I wrote Laughing Gas and I saw this whole thing come in as you're reading Laughing Gas, or what I'm renaming now, but I wrote it back then for this whole time because I saw what's coming in, Britain being used as a Trojan horse to break up the European alliance and feed Europe into a war against Russia so it can go after what it really wants, and to make this bigger kind of like go after Iran and create this whole new economic framework that has to replace the kind of like the outdated US dollar and bring in a whole new control system. And it's a time where we also choose our gods, and this is where we choose whether we want to have Jupiter as our gods, or whether we want to have something else as our gods. And it's starting to really look as if it's really just the difference between Saturn and Jupiter as our biggest influences and which one we go near. And it really just simply divides into those two. And it's funny because this is my, 56 this year, and so I'm Saturn returning this year, and this was the first year that Saturn arrived on my model, more as we understand it in the contemporary kind of like, I've put it onto my model in my new model. I don't believe that Jupiter moves as I've got it in the model there, but I just brought it in because just show you that. But you can see Saturn is added to this model, and I've got it coming right round. I've got it coming right round. Our Sun and Planet X in this model, but with all these other models that are moving at the speeds that they're moving, I'm of a mind that it's not doing that at all. It's because you've got to understand that every time something, say we're on this side of the solar system here, and we see these objects, and we see them coming into our night sky and that sort of stuff, what we're told comes right round here when we're on the far side and we're supposed to see certain objects. Well, there's a lot of stuff that goes on that we can still account much of the standard model in this model as we would see it in our normal, what we would see in the standard model. This doesn't so upset the apple cart in terms of what we're actually seeing in our astronomical sky. This is just a way of evolving our understanding and bringing, obviously, direction of our Sun into the scheme of things, as in bringing this 21st of June into the scheme of things, and this whole kind of like a much bigger view of a much more complicated system that it is true. It's a fantastically complex thing now, and I don't know what to do about that now. I really don't know what to do about that. It is what it is, I guess, and it's I guess that's it, folks. I guess that's it. I guess that's all I can say here, really. I can't really give you any more other than say, please follow Laughing Gas, and then as soon as I've done it a few more, I'm going to start doing a much bigger release, sending it out to friends and that sort of stuff. And like I say, I was thanking you, wasn't I, for all the support. And thank you for everyone who's put a bit of money into my PayPal thing. I'm so short of money at the moment. I'm finding it so difficult. The stuff that's coming through here and there, it's only a couple of hundred bucks here or there that comes in, so I'm not getting rich from anything that's coming in. Please don't think I'm actually rolling in money. Everything is just operating at absolute minimum, even though it's been a bit of a challenge just lately to try and get through everything and find a way to keep everything going, and holding on with my fingernails through all this and not knowing how to communicate any of it. I think I've needed to have something going on in the background, because honestly seeing it all unfold right now and just also knowing where it goes, that unprecedented peace will be waged on this earth. But we're at a very critical point now, and so this is not a war happening. This is waging peace that's happening now. Because once the Third World War starts, you end. I end. There is no future beyond that. Not for you or I. That is fallout. That's an endgame scenario. Which means that something else has to happen here. And the only thing that can happen, the only thing that will happen is waging peace. And I explore quite a bit in the new chapters I've just added. You know, I put bringing the soul anomaly into the latest bit of One Way to Jupiter, and we're going to arrive in Akitos now in the book, and so begins the bigger adventure and the big showdown that's going to happen in Laughing Gas that I wrote for this time, because you're looking down the same barrel of the gun that I was looking down when I wrote that book. What I was shown of the picture of whoever I was before I had that big experience where I saw myself I experienced myself being destroyed by a tsunami, and I couldn't go to a higher place beyond the destruction of what was happening, because I was no part in the solution to fix it. I was of the problem. You know, in Laughing Gas it starts in a really messy space, I'm afraid, and it's kind of like it's a messy space where kind of environmental activists kind of got all the sound bites, suddenly realizes that he's kind of more full of shit than the people he's been judging as the wrong uns, and has to finally realise that he has to kind of put the finger of blame on himself for a change, and so begins a kind of a journey. And in waging peace right now, and being part of that in any and every which way you can, even if it's just by focusing on peaceful pilgrimage and focusing on the 21st of June, where you're going, this cosmic direction, coming back to your galactic, align yourself to the big place where you're going within the Milky Way. You're kind of like, you're going round the Milky Way yourself. You're coming round the Milky Way, just like Earth is going round the sun, and just like our sun is going around Planet X, and just like Planet X is going round the Milky Way. You're tapping into that forward motion and connecting into your forward motion within the Milky Way. You know, the sun is moving forward. Planet X is moving forward. Sorry, this is Herculosis, or whatever you want to call it, whether you want to call it Neptune, whether you want to call it Uranus, all the same. This is the big blue object orbiting, obviously, Planet X, whatever you want to call it. The black star, all charging forward, all in an orbital relationship with each other, but all actually fundamentally orbiting the Milky Way. And that's what we've got to connect to, our cosmic hub, where great intelligence lies, that we can connect to help us solve this massive challenge that faces us right now. We are right on the edge of our fate and our destiny. We are in every moment, but never more so has Earth sat right on that cusp as it does right now. So cosmic alignment right now is your greatest strength, is your most cosmic connection you can have through this right now. And that's what observing all of these has given me more than anything else, and that's what I hope that I can offer on to you. So my inverter's going. I've been talking for absolutely ages, so here's where I'm going to say farewell and thank you for your time. And honey in the heart, 1,000 thank yous. Wage peace, be part of that now, and connect to the cosmos in every which way you can. And big golden rings of light, and thank you for those who've helped me out a little bit. Honestly, right now I am struggling so much that any help you're giving me right now is absolutely massive, and if you're helping me, you're helping my process in achieving my goals, and this is my goal of bringing world peace, so you're helping me do that. So you're directly investing in helping me do that. And if you're expecting something of me in communication, please get this. I've got so much honour and respect for you and your path and helping me. Sometimes my communication with you directly I can't do right now. A lot of you I can't do right now, but it does not mean I do. I see you, I so see you, I really do, and I appreciate all the support, I really, really do. And there'll be a time in all of this for thank yous and for hugs and for gratitude. But right now we've all got to do our bit to try and just do whatever we can to get through this, and whatever support you're giving me in this, I appreciate it so much because it helps me do this mission. And if you've helped me do this mission, know that you are part of peace and you have peaceful intentions. Thank you.